Welcome to the biggest party ever that acknowledges, no, celebrates failure in science and scholarship. Welcome to the official launch of the Journal of Trial and Error. I could not be more proud to see that our team of graduate students from all around the world succeeded in building a publication platform dedicated to publish, communicate and reflect on trial and error, which is the fundamental process of learning and discovery in the production of knowledge. We focus on what it practically means to do science, struggling, muddling through, doubting, but also fighting for a meaningful job that pays your rent. By doing so, we aim to rethink scientific success by communicating failure. We believe that researchers fail when their research results in outcomes that contradict the individual academic's aim for doing that particular research. Examples include failed replication studies, negative or null results, but failure also happens to the historian that did not find the sources he hoped or expected to find. Why then are these results regarded as failure? Well, there might be a wide variety of reasons, but one certainly is the most important of all. These results cannot be published because negative knowledge does not adhere to the image of science spectacular, leading to ground-shaking breakthroughs and solves all world problems. As a result, however, much research on things that do not work or seem not true is not communicated and instead put into a file drawer. As you all know, and I can say this because we are aware that most of you in fact are quite impressive researchers, this led to a big gap between what is researched and what is published. This is itself the outcome of another gap, that between expectations and the day-to-day reality of science in the making. It is evident that the Journal of Trial and Error aims to close these gaps by communicating unexpected results. And we do this because this knowledge is of high value, even quintessential in arriving at meaningful conclusions. And this perspective, however, requires us to think of knowledge productions as a collective and altruistic enterprise rather than an individual and competitive struggle. At JOTE, we believe to turn the outcomes of individual struggles into meaningful knowledge. After all, team science only works if a hell of a lot of individuals constantly fail. We want to ease this process a bit by communicating the paths and expectations that did not work out or appear to be unrealistic. And as a result, we hope, two individual researchers now never have to fail the same way. However, individual failure is not necessarily valuable on its own. If we want to turn the unexpected empirical results that we publish into meaningful knowledge, we believe that reflection is essential. Unexpected results, after all, are the starting point of reflection. Therefore, we invite for every published empirical article a subject specialist, a philosopher, anthropologist, historian or sociologist of science to write a reflection piece addressing the question of what went wrong, why is this experience a failure, and what can we learn from this expected result? Additionally, we provide space for standalone, constructive reflections on trial and error in research, as well as for rejected grant applications. And now finally, these ideas have left the drawing table and materialized in an actual publishing platform. We have resisted the temptation of collaborating with profit-based publishing houses, even though this might have led to the kinds of careers that guarantees a stable life. We founded our own publishing house, and this move towards self-publishing turned out to be extremely difficult, time-consuming, frustrating, and most of all, rather naive. But our fantastic team, in collaboration with community publishing project PubUp from MIT, succeeded in establishing a value-based project in adherence to the ideal of an open and transparent science. This radical transparency means a couple of very concrete things that you might have discovered already browsing through our journal. First, because we have invested most of our free time, we are not interested in making profit and have secured enough funding for the coming years, we publish in adherence with a diamond open access model. It is free of charge to both publish in JOTE and read its content. We are also critical and transparent about peer review and all the processes related in our journal. That is why we publish all reviews and enable post-publication peer review on every article using some quite fancy tooling. You should check that out. Another example of our transparent publishing ethos is the incorporation of raw data in every article. This dynamic publishing enables us to incorporate interactive and transparent visualizations, as you might have seen already in some of the publications in our first issue. Now that we have finished this first issue, and many yet to come, we already have enough content for a second issue, for example, let's reflect a bit more on the kinds of people that will become interested in what this journal does and what it stands for. I think that it is fair to say that we are sexy for three groups: frustrated methodologists, subversive reflectors, and white-collared activists. Let's start with the first bunch, the frustrated methodologists. For this group, the Journal of Trial and Error is a venue that finally dedicates itself to publishing negative results to improve meta-analysis. For those researchers, JOTE is an answer to the replication crisis in the social and biomedical sciences. Due to underpowered studies, manipulated p-values, and even more fundamentally, problematic theoretical frameworks, by feeding unexpected research outputs such as negative results and failed replication studies into existing bodies of knowledge, JOTE contributes to a more robust and maybe even to a better science. In their aim to create this better science, it is nice that JOTE offers a way to publish interesting negatives in a traditional manner. That is, a publication in JOTE is indexed and peer-reviewed, it generates citations, can be registered in Pure, and improves your H-index. A publication in JOTE counts. It enables frustrated methodologists to compete in a way that is productive for science. So JOTE makes frustrated methodologists just less frustrated in a pragmatic way, without asking them to be revolutionary or obstructive. To these frustrated methodologists, I say welcome to the Journal of Trial and Error. The Journal of Trial and Error looks slightly different to our second group, the subversive reflectors. These researchers are interested in the conceptual, sociological and historical conditions that influence science and scholarship. They like to problematize undisputed and authoritative claims and reflect on science as an object of study. Having a subversive attitude, this group of sociologists, historians, philosophers, anthropologists and other researchers likes to take a bird's eye perspective and help those that are producing knowledge to take a break, sit back, reflect and have a Kit Kat. It is often a bit unclear whether this group is actually interested in solving the problems and answering the questions they point at. But I guess that those subversive reflectors that are interested in the Journal of Trial and Error are at least looking for a way to engage with scientists in a constructive manner. Our model offers such a way by looking at one particular characteristic of knowledge production, making mistakes. I hope that the subversive reflectors that will engage with JOTE will form the missing link that makes individual failure meaningful for the academic enterprise as a community. In this way, we want historians, philosophers and sociologists of science to leave their trenches, stop congratulating one another with all the brilliant things they have to say and reconnect with their interested audiences. The time of throwing intellectual criticism over the fence and armchair problematizing is over. Welcome to the Journal of Trial and Error. The third group that is interested in JOTE, I will call them the white-collared activists, might have discovered that the Journal of Trial and Error is not at all a journal, but a Trojan horse. White-collared activists, masked as young researchers, interpret the Journal of Trial and Error as the starting point of collective action, aiming at structural and systemic change while taking the historically contingent shape of a journal. For them, the journal an sich is a beacon of hope in a rather sad, slightly dark academic environment that exploits its young researchers for the benefit of seemingly successful, quite often also very lucky, authoritative individuals. White-collar activists are worried about the toxic and hierarchical research culture in which only the most competitive survive. They want to do something about that. For them, contributing to the Journal of Trial and Error is a way to highlight and criticize the struggles that go along with science in the making. It is a way to show that academia's obsession with success is counterproductive and puts real people and their families under enormous and unhealthy pressures. For white-collar activists, JOTE is the first tiny step in altering the massive factory that science seems to have become into the curiosity-driven enterprise that they think it should be. Although some might think of white-collar activists as wolves in sheep clothes, they are most welcome on board of the Journal of Trial and Error. Now that I've welcomed you all, I want to conclude this introduction to the party by briefly explaining the Journal of Trial and Error. I am a historian of science and medicine, so I might be paying too much attention to contextual factors, but I guess this is appropriate at the celebration of our first issue. Two conditions are essential to explain JOTE. One regards people, the other institutional embeddedness. I do find it very important to emphasize that the Journal of Trial and Error is founded by a group of graduate students at the beginning of what they hoped will be a career in academia. The three of us met 2 years ago at an open science event and were arrogant enough to think that we could initiate a journal that would solve all methodological, conceptual and systemic problems that science currently faces. No to naivety and yes to optimism was our slogan. I think that looked rather cute, especially since all senior academics initially patted us on the back, wished us good luck and walked away, expecting that JOTE would pass over rather silently. Only when a group of master's and PhD students, we are now with 16, started collaborating and believing in our mission, the academic community not only embraced us, but also encouraged us to face the monsters we try to fight. What this shows to me is that young researchers are able to make a change, fed by a combination of insecurity, an overload of energy and enthusiasm, flexibility, naivety, and a collaborative mindset, as well as the will to make things better. It is, also to my own surprise, possible to make academia meaningful. However, I'm not naive. This is only possible in an institutional context that encourages young researchers from various cultural and disciplinary backgrounds to talk to one another, critically reflect on science, scholarship and the academic system, and turn these reflections into action. That space has been guaranteed by Utrecht University's Descartes Center for the History and Philosophy of the Sciences and Humanities, as well as its unique master's program in History and Philosophy of Science. JOTE could not have existed without the historical, philosophical and interdisciplinary reflection on knowledge production in the way that it has taken place at the Descartes Center under the direction of Bert Teunissen. It is not an accident that this is the only name I explicitly want to mention in this introduction. To conclude, welcome you all to the launch of the Journal of Trial and Error. Our team has organized the most fascinating event and we are happy that such a diverse and international audience signed up. JOTE started on a small piece of paper, turned into a practical joke, into a cute student initiative, became embraced by a growing group of researchers and finally resulted into the first issue that we launched today. Let's now turn JOTE into the movement that makes science and scholarship robust and meaningful. Join our ride. Science fails, let's publish.